Good evening, everyone. At this time, I will call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Thousand Oaks City Council and Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, September 26, 2006. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Fox is absent at this time. Councilmember Bill De La Pena, absent at this time. Councilmember Irwin. Councilmember Glancy.
Here.
Mayor Gillette.
Here. Item 4, special announcements and requests for continuance of any public hearing or agenda item. I have been told that we have none, and I think that stands. We have a series of special presentations this evening, and for those, this is item 5, I will move down to the podium. Good evening. Our first presentation is a proclamation of Cultural Harmony Month. The city's Cultural Harmony Committee has been busy planning special activities for city staff to promote cultural awareness and harmony in the workplace. Chair of the committee, Elaine Keenan from Human Resources, is here to tell us more and to accept the proclamation. Ms. Keenan, where are you? There you are.
Thank you, Mayor Gillette, and thank you, council members. Good evening. My name is Elena Keenan, and I am very excited to be a part of the city's Employee Human Relations Committee and to participate in the preparation of the second annual Cultural Harmony Month, to be celebrated in October. And last year we enjoyed tremendous success as a committee in planning a variety of activities and festivities to celebrate cultural diversity here in the city of Thousand Oaks as well as among our city workforce. And with me this evening are a few of our talented and dedicated committee members, and I'd like to take just a moment to introduce them to you. To my right, I have Diane Vanderkamp from our City Finance Department, and behind me is Nancy Arietta from our City's Public Works Department, and I have Sharon Meyer from the City Clerk Department, and over my left shoulder is Mary Sepe from our City's Community Development Department, and I think that is it at this point in time, but we do have representatives from all the various city departments. And once again, this year as a committee, we are involved in planning a variety of educational and social events to increase the employees' understanding of various cultures and to learn more about cultural traditions and customs from regions around the world. And in particular, as a committee, we plan several events, including a brown bag speaker series, website trivia, as well as the culminating event, which will be an international day later in the month of October. So I thank the council and the mayor for your support and for your enthusiasm in recognizing cultural diversity here at the City of Thousand Oaks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and all of you. Thank you so much. If I may, this proclamation is in honor of Cultural Harmony Month. The City of Thousand Oaks recognizes and values the ethnic and cultural heritage of all community members, and our city diversifies, strengthens our community, and presents us with opportunities for continuing economic growth and cultural enrichments while making Thousand Oaks a more interesting and better place to live and work. And Cultural Harmony Month provides an occasion to focus on ways in which we can learn from each other and come to a common understanding of ourselves as a multicultural community with shared goals and values. And Cultural Harmony Month encourages understanding and exchange between cultures in our community. Now, therefore, I, Dennis C. Gillette, Mayor of the City of Thousand Oaks, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim October 2006 as Cultural Harmony Month and urge all citizens to celebrate Cultural Harmony Month. Again, thank you all, ladies, very much. Present that to you. Sure. Our second presentation is actually from Councilmember Irwin, who served as chair this year for the American Diabetes Association Tour de Cure bike race on April 30th. Councilmember Irwin has a plaque to present to the city's Tour de Cure team, which was headed up by Jay Spurgeon, our Deputy Public Works Director. Jackie, turn the mic over to you.
Thank you very much. On April 30th of this year, 303 bike riders from Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, and Simi Valley rode in the 2006 Tour de Cure, hosted by the American Diabetes Association. A total of $116,231 was raised through sponsorships and donations, and this supports very valuable research into the cure of diabetes. This disease affects 1 in 20 people, and it was very interesting. Most of the people that rode knew somebody that were either themselves affected by diabetes, had a family member, or knew somebody. The City of Thousand Oaks Public Service Pros team included 25 staff members from all departments, along with Mayor Gillette and Councilmember Glancy. Team members rode in all three, well, they didn't actually ride in all 3 of the courses. Someone participated in the 62-mile, the 30-mile, and the 5-mile route, and they're all going to try and up their mileage next year. The city team raised a total of $11,228, coming in first place among 38 teams from the Tri-City area. This is an exceptional example of the generosity of city staff, and the team captain this year was Jay Spurgeon. He was one of the top individual fundraisers and raised over $3,700 himself. So I'm pleased to present the first place plaque to Jay Spurgeon. Congratulations. Thank you very much. And I again want to thank all the members of the staff that participated and thank them for their generosity. Did you want to say something? No. Thank you very much. Thank you.
An interesting side note to this bicycle activity. I didn't do this just because I had a lot of discretionary time on my hands. I had an agreement with Mrs. Irwin, and as a result of my riding in the bicycle race, Mrs. Irwin agreed to adopt an oak tree under the city's Adopt an Oak program, making her the second city council member to adopt an oak. And again, I encourage all of our council colleagues, Dr. Glancy, provide you the opportunity also at some point to adopt an oak. Okay? No pressure here. Next, I'd like to present a proclamation, Relay for Life Weekend, September 30th through October 1st, 2006. This weekend marks the Conejo Valley's Relay for Life at Newbury Park High School. This event is a major fundraising event for the American Cancer Society. The city also has a team in this event and has so far raised over $5,500 for the relay. Here to accept the proclamation, tell us a little more about the event, is this year's Relay for Life Chair, Charles Volk. Charles?
This Saturday marks the 9th annual Conejo Valley Relay for Life. Relays, which are now in their 21st year, are held in hundreds of communities across the United States and represent the signature fundraising event for the American Cancer Society. I'm very pleased to report that the Conejo Valley has a very strong relay event, last year raising $420,000, and we are shooting for a goal of $500,000 this year. There will be 135 teams out on Newbury Park High School's practice football field, with approximately 1,500 people participating between 10 a.m. Saturday morning and 10 a.m. Sunday morning. Cancer strikes 2 in 5 Americans. A very scary thought is that 40% of the people in this room will sometime during their lifetime hear the diagnosis that they have cancer. The American Cancer Society is one of the key organizations leading the fight against cancer through their efforts in research, education, legislative advocacy, and services, not only for those who are fighting cancer, but also for their caregivers who have their unique needs also. I would like to thank the City Council for recognizing our efforts. I would like to thank the Mayor and several of the council members who will be participating in our opening and closing ceremonies. I would like to thank the City team for raising the money and for their efforts over the past several years. And finally, I would like to extend an effort to all of here present tonight to come out and join us. We're at Newbury Park High School. We start at 10 a.m. It's a 24-hour event, but you do not have to walk the whole 24 hours in this fight against cancer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charles. It's my privilege at this time to present this commendation in honor of Relay for Life Conejo Valley. Relay for Life Conejo Valley is a fun-filled overnight event where teams will gather at Newbury Park High School on September 30th and October 1st, 2006, and take turns walking or running laps, and is designed to celebrate survivorship and raise money for research and programs of the American Cancer Society. And Relay offers something for everyone, from the newly diagnosed to caregivers and friends to long-term survivors, and represents the hope that those lost to cancer will never be forgotten, that those who face cancer will be supported, and that one day cancer will be eliminated. And more than 20 years ago, one man took it upon himself to raise money for the efforts of the American Cancer Society, and today more than 3 million Americans participate in relay events nationwide. And Relay for Life Conejo Valley provides exemplary service to our community, especially those affected by cancer. Now therefore I, Dennis Gillette, Mayor of the City of Thousand Oaks, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby commend Relay for Life Conejo Valley and offer a sincere thank you to the men and women who participate and the sponsors of this worthwhile event, and urge all residents to support the relay on September 30th and October 1st, 2006 at Newbury Park High. Congratulations, Charles, and thank you so much for everything you do with this. Thank you. I will see you Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Our last presentation is to the City Council from the Conejo Las Virgenes Future Foundation with a report on the 2016, the 2016 conference, which took a look at the future and was held earlier this year here at the Civic Arts Plaza. Carl Herman, Vice Chairman of the Foundation, is here to give us a report. Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to publicly acknowledge all the support you've given us over the years. particularly in our last event, the Day in Your Life 2016. The mission of our organization is to serve as a catalyst and facilitator for studies, projects, and events to bring together people of diverse interests to focus on quality of life issues and plan for the future of our community. This year, we've already accomplished three very important programs: our second Senior Congress, our 22nd Youth Congress, and the aforementioned A Day in Your Life 2016. What we attempted to do in about a 4-hour program was to take a look at 5 major areas of concern as expressed in surveys that we distributed in the community. The 5 major areas are health and wellness, education, mobility and transportation, architecture and planning, and communications. We had experts in each of the fields present to us their views of what our community might look like in 2016. The good news is it's very, very encouraging. The challenging news is we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them. I guess there's an old saying that if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And we intend to try to focus on initiatives and programs that will help us move a step ahead instead of just trying to catch up. Our conference was held here thanks to the cooperation of the council and the staff. It was attended by over 100 people. The feedback was excellent, and it encourages us to continue this kind of look into the future at subsequent colloquia. I would like to again thank the members of the council, the staff, for all the support, financial and otherwise, that you've given us over the years. I have a copy of the video of that conference that I'll leave with the staff for your use, and if you need more, we have them. Again, thank you very much.
At this time, would the clerk please call item 6, public comment.
This is the time and place for public comments. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. All speakers for public hearing shall be called and heard during the public hearing. Pursuant to council standards of operation, the mayor may assist any speaker from straying into areas not within the city's jurisdiction. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole, and remarks directed at a particular council member are not allowed. Under state law, issues discussed under public comments can have no action unless listed on the agenda and may be referred to the city manager for administrative action or scheduled on a subsequent agenda. All documents for city council and the official city records should be presented to the city clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and city of residence for the record. 10 people have presented cards, and pursuant to council standards, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Our first speaker this evening will be Ventura County Fire Chief Mike LaPlante and Ventura County Sheriff's Department Commander Dennis Carpenter as a joint present. Oh, there he is. I understood that the two of you were going to both speak. So, go ahead, Chief.
Mayor Gillette, members of the council, what I wanted to do is just take a few short minutes to brief the council as well as the citizens of the city on what's come to be known as the Day Fire, which is ravishing the northern one half of our county and has been burning since September 4th. I'd also probably call this presentation what I did on my summer vacation because I was up there a bit. But coming back, I just wanted to share what's been currently going on. As you know, the fire started on September 4th in an area in Los Padres National Forest, which is known as the Sespe Wilderness Area. It was along the Piru Creek the start location. That's between Pyramid Lake and Piru Lake along the Piru Creek drainage. The initial priorities for controlling the fire was, after realizing it was going to be a complex and difficult fire to contain, the 4 priorities were to control the fire on the east, to protect the I-5 corridor, and then protect it on the south, which protected the cities of Fillmore, Piru, and Santa Paula. Thirdly was to attempt to protect the northern area of the fire, which included Lockwood Valley and the Fraser Park area. And finally, the 4th priority was to close the western boundary, which is leading further into the wilderness, and that was pretty much been followed to this date, although each one of those priorities were tested by the fire. As you know, the I-5 was closed for 2 days because the fire made an attempt to cross the I-5. Subsequently, the fire did move to the south with east winds towards Santa Paula and Fillmore and Piru. That has been, I think, contained and checked. We feel very confident that that's been, I think, secured. As you know, with the help of a DC-10 aircraft they brought in a few days ago to put some retardant on the ground in mass quantities. The 3rd priority, which is basically being addressed concurrently with the southern flank, was that northern flank, which should have been the Lockwood Valley area, which is in our county, and then also protecting the areas of Pinyon Pines, Lake of the Woods, and Fraser Park in the Kern County. Well, that fire has obviously tested that line, and today was not a good day. It exceeded our attempts to contain it on the north, and was, when I left, the ICP was currently running through Lockwood Valley and threatening Pinyon Pines and Cuddy Valley and Lake of the Woods and also Fraser Park. The incident made an order for 50 strike teams of engines, or equivalent to 250 engines, to respond to provide structure protection. Last night, the Sheriff's Department was called upon to assist in evacuations and responded with a number of units, which I'll let Dennis talk about. Currently, the fire is pretty much burning unchecked to the north and is threatening those communities. Long-term impacts are a long-term relationship with the fire. I think if the fire were contained today, we'd still have 3 weeks of work to do at least, so it's going to be some long-term issues. Just in closing, impacts on the city. Because we sent a number of engines up there, we've instituted in the district a Plan 3, which is recalling everyone back to duty. We've staffed additional engines, and with our commitment of over probably 15 engines, all total up on the fire, we've had no reduction in coverage here in the city. Every fire station has remained covered with an engine company and the appropriate staffing and backup. Long-term impacts, I think, will be associated with the flooding potential in the Fillmore area, with this SB Creek drainage being completely denuded and all the issues associated with that, as well as Piru. But that's just a quick brief update. I have a map over here which I'll be happy to speak to anyone about later who wanted some more detail in specific areas. But that was a perimeter as of this morning, but I would suspect we've added in thousands of acres this afternoon, from last night through this afternoon. Be free to answer any questions, and Police Chief Carpenter, I think, would be coming up with some to report on their activities from the Sheriff's Department's perspective.
I think there are a couple of questions. Just one that I had, I just caught one of the broadcasts, one of the TV broadcasts tonight said that it had jumped Lockwood Valley Road, which now cut a clear path for it to head into Lockwood Valley, which I understood Lockwood Valley Road was that you were going to, the resources were going to try and keep it as a fire break to contain that portion of it, but with it jumping, it's got a whole new area of expansion.
Yeah, there were contingency lines cut probably a week and a half ago in anticipation of a move north. The attempt was made last night to hold those. It just bypassed those very easily. And then it subsequently jumped Lockwood Valley Road, and you may be familiar with Station 11. In the Lockwood Valley Sheriff's Department substation, it was threatened, and all of those homes north of Lockwood Valley Road now have been impacted by the fire, and it's continuing to go north and to the northeast, primarily back toward the Lake of the Woods and the Fraser Park area, which brings Kern County, that jurisdiction, into play, and they're also now involved in the suppression of the fire on that side.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions of Chief LaPlante? Mrs. Spildale-Pena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. I also heard that from one of the public information officers out on the front lines, and I don't know with which department he is, said that if there were no rain in the next few weeks or months, that the fire could burn until December. Do you know whether that is actually factually correct?
I think it's easy to project that this fire will run over 200,000 acres. Because it's spreading to the west into the wilderness area, which presents some difficulties in control. There will be portions of that fire that will probably be burning easily for the next 30 or 45 days and potentially into December. We had some reports from the weather experts that the likelihood of sufficient rain to suppress the fire would be maybe 10% possibility through October. It wouldn't be till mid of November where we might see a 50-50 chance of seeing enough rain to suppress that fire. But to expect us to put containment lines on the ground over the 60 or 70 miles of line that needed to be constructed by that time would be very, very difficult and maybe unlikely. So there will be areas of that fire still burning well into the early winter, I would imagine.
How close is the fire now to residences, such as ranches, for example, and is it threatening the California Condor Sanctuary?
The first part of your question, it's about the homes. It is in homes. It is in the Lockwood Valley area, which has numerous ranches. Although less populated than the other areas to the east, it has impacted those. Like I said, Station 11, the county yard, our fire station, or where we house fire equipment, has all been attacked and moved through. If it continues to move to the northeast, it'll be into areas that are more heavily populated, Lake of the Woods, Frazier Park itself, which has a very sizable population, and I think those are very much a threat. With 250 fire ranges moving up there, that's in anticipation of it entering those communities, and then continuing to move north. And the real risk now is, as we know this time of year, the east winds will return, which is done twice over the course of this fire, and if it comes back later in this weekend or next, the fire will then move back to the west and reestablish itself and just wait for another wind shift. It's really fuel and weather driven right now, and on that north perimeter, and that's where it's going. As far as the Condor Sanctuary, it moved to the south, although lines were constructed, and through terrain features, I think the Condor Sanctuary was protected. The incident has made allowances to get staff back into the Condor Sanctuary to check on the health of the chicks specifically, and have actually were able to bring feed back in for the actual nesting condor pairs, and so that's really been working out pretty well. I think that has survived this well, and it's protected, so that will continue. That was a high priority for us early on in the south side of the fire.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions? Just two more quick questions, Mike. Has this area ever burned before? And if so, when? How long ago?
Our fire history maps show a lot of fire instances on the lower area along Fillmore Piru. A lot of history. I mean, upwards of 3 years ago we had the Piru fire.
Right.
As soon as you go north into the wilderness area, our fire history maps show no fire history for the last 80 to 100 years. And so that fuel is over 100 years old, which means that its live to dead ratio of fuel is probably 90% dead, 10% live. We had medium-sized bulldozers working in an area that we were allowed to use bulldozers, and these are D6 and 7 size bulldozers, if you're familiar with the size of a bulldozer, and they had brush growing over the top of or larger than their roll cage on the bulldozer. This puts it at 10 to 12 foot high, and they were unable to really make much headway until we brought in heavier bulldozers that were of the 8 and 9 model, D8s and 9s. But just relentless growth of the fuel, and it's unchecked, and it's so old and decadent that it just really has been burning unchecked in that wilderness area. And being in a wilderness area, to get in there are no roads, so we had to rappel firefighters in to cut brush and create helispots where helicopters could land and deploy firefighters out of those helicopters and go pretty much hand to hand. And then when the fire got out to a degree of extreme fire behavior, we had to withdraw those folks and then try to take advantage of creek bottoms and other things that presented themselves. The Forest Service actually has been good in allowing some bulldozer operations in very limited areas of the wilderness. They're very protective. To get bulldozer operations inside wilderness boundaries really takes approval from the Forest Regional Office with concurrence from Washington. So we have asked for that in a couple of areas. They've allowed that, but they've been very restrictive, and that has to be rehabilitated after the fire as well.
The final thing I would ask, I know the incident command structure maintains a running tally on cost. Have a figure for us of what so far what the price tag is on fighting this thing?
You know, the last time I checked, it's probably 3 days old. It was exceeding $25 million. And as there are 3,000 people assigned to the fire with all the appropriate equipment and support. So, you know, the fire is certainly approaching 35, 40, and certainly the Washington office of the Forest Service is watching this closely, because really Washington and the Forest Service has the responsibility for the fire. It is on their property, and although we are involved with structure protection, and we've assumed the responsibility for costs associated directly with structural protection outside the forest boundary.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mike, Chief LaPlante. Chief Carpenter?
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'll be very brief. The question usually comes to us in these situations: how many resources have you committed to this endeavor? And as you know, the Sheriff's Department has been involved from day one, working at the command post, as well as putting out the evacuation notifications. I'm told that, well, a good example of last night when they started to evacuate the Lockwood Valley area, we sent 17 units, code 3, from the Ventura, Camarillo, Thousand Oaks area up to the location to assist in that. None of our contract cities were impacted in that we didn't send any contract city cars up there. It was conveniently occurred at a time when shift change was about to occur, and they just held officers over and sent them. So our patrol cars, our beats were covered, but we could reach a point where they're not able to be covered, and we would raise our level of responding to calls to emergencies only, or have to be assist in the county area. That's rare, but it happens from time to time. So all of our contract cities have been covered so far, and we hope that we're able to continue to doing that. And I can respond to any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions of Chief Carpenter? Mr. Mitnick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just to reiterate or to clarify for both fire and police, the city of Thousand Oaks is clearly out of danger from the actual incident. But the backfilling that takes place for firefighters and for police officers, that's part of mutual aid, and that's how it works, and it works very well. So the emergency services continue to be provided to the city of Thousand Oaks. But firefighters assigned to Thousand Oaks and police officers assigned to Thousand Oaks have been helping out in the incident. So we are doing our share that way.
Anything further? Okay, both of you, thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Mike Soa, followed by Bob Wilson.
My name is Mike Soa. I'm a resident of Westlake Village. My comments are directed toward bike lane safety. I've been a Conejo Valley resident for 19 years, and as an avid cyclist, I've spent many years mountain biking the trails through the Santa Monica Mountains. But recently, I've joined friends and begun riding on the street. The miles and miles of bike lanes within the Conejo Valley offer a cyclist an element of safety from the traffic racing by. Cyclists, walkers, and joggers from miles around are very thankful that this community has these bike lanes. However, on September 16th, we were once again reminded just how vulnerable we are. Mr. Glenn Garvin, a 49-year-old husband and father of 2 boys, who was well known to the City Council for his work on the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission, was fatally struck from behind by a motorist that veered into the bike lane where he was riding with a friend. Mr. Garvin knew firsthand the dangers of riding in the bike lane and was trying to help create some greater form of safety for them. In this lies the tragic irony of his death, and should also punctuate the importance of implementing something sooner, not later. I propose something that can be done right away. That is to distinguish the bike lane as a traffic lane by placing raised reflective dots next to the painted white line. This will make the drifting motorist aware of the encroachment the second it happens. The white paint is not enough. Let's make it so the driver feels that they are dangerously close to crossing over the line. I realize these bumps are not going to protect anyone from a car that is out of control, but something needs to be done to increase the relative safety of the bike lane. This idea is something that can be done right away. Ultimately, it would be wonderful to have bike lanes that are completely removed from the traffic lanes, but I know that that is a proposal that would take years to implement. So for now, please place the reflective dots. No reconfiguring of the lanes to slow the process down is required. We're simply adding another element to the lane separation that just seems like common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saw. Mr. Saw, if you looked at tonight's agenda, Councilmember Glancy does have an item on this very issue that you're addressing, increased bicycle safety. So
I believe I have an email that's in your packet.
you're aware of it. All right, fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob Wilson, followed by Jan Smith. Mr. Wilson is former council member and former mayor of the city of Thousand Oaks. Good evening, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, council. Good evening, mayor. My name is Bob Wilson. I'm a resident of the city of Thousand Oaks. I wanted to thank Scott Mednick, as city manager and also city attorney and the city's executive team for a very informative night on the 21st of this month. A wealth of information was distributed to all the potential candidates that are running for city council, and I think the city staff did an excellent job of providing information, although it may take me a month to read it all, but it was indeed informative. The reason I'm here tonight is that we've had our first debate for city council on the September 20th. The League of Women Voters put on a debate of which items we discussed were senior affordable housing and Prop 90. I believe that the crowd that was there numbered over 100 people, and I think they thoroughly enjoyed their evening there listening to the potential candidates and council incumbents. We have coming up on September the 28th at 7:30 at the North Ranch Community Center, the Westlake Joint Board is sponsoring the candidates debate, and I would urge the people that have the time and are concerned about what goes on in your city to attend this. I see that Kathy's here tonight. I'm probably taking a little of her steam out of it, but maybe a double whammy will get people out. But anyway, that's one of the debates. Also, the Thousand Oaks Westlake Village Regional Chamber of Commerce is having a candidates debate on October the 5th at 7 p.m., and that's at the Los Robles Greens Banquet Center, located at 299 South Moore Park Road. That's the golf course banquet center. On the 15th of October, the Rotary Street Fair, and it's an opportunity to get to see all the candidates and actually talk to them in person. Each and every candidate will probably have, and including the incumbents, a booth at that fair. And it's a long one, but it's a lot of fun. There's food booths and quite a few things that the Rotary puts on. It's been an annual event. On the 18th of October, right here at the Sheriff Forum, the League of Women Voters are putting on a candidates forum. It's from 6:30 to 8:30. That one will be televised. I believe that the Regional Chamber of Commerce one will also be televised on Channel 10. So those of you who can't make it can watch it on that channel. But thank you for your time, and I hope to see you at the debates.
Thank you. Jan Smith, followed by Ray Hinton.
Good evening, Mayor Gillette, City Council members, City staff. My name is Jan Smith. I'm the Governmental and Economic Development Manager for the Thousand Oaks Westlake Village Chamber. I'll thank Bob for talking about the Candidates Forum on the 5th. However, I am here tonight to remind you folks that the Chamber is hosting their 21st annual Westlake Village Automobile Show this weekend. Maybe once you're done with the Relay for Life, you can stop by and visit us. It's the longest running car show in the Conejo Valley. Sunday, October 1st. Show opens approximately 10 a.m. The awards presentation will be at 2. There's fabulous raffle prizes. There's entertainment for the kids, food and drink, vendors, and of course a chance to look at some really fabulous automobiles. Where is it? We've moved it this year. It's at Countrywide Financial Corporation. It's on Agoura Road, directly across from the city of Westlake Village. If you'd like to enter a car, you can come between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and still have a chance to enter a car. If you need additional information, please contact the Chamber at 805-370-0035.
Hope we see you all at the car fair on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Hinton, followed by Jeff Alexander.
Good evening. My name is Ray Hinton, and I've been a resident of Thousand Oaks since 1963, a resident of the street on Berkshire for 23 years. I'm addressing you tonight basically for the first time. We have a big problem in the neighborhood that some council members are aware of now, with a certain individual that is parking up to 20 junked vehicles in our neighborhood. He plays a shell game where he moves them around after they've been towed. The neighbors have asked him politely to please move. What he does is he comes in front of your house late at night, and in my case, he's harassed myself and my 2 young daughters by coming after midnight, revving his engine up. And I've had to call the police out on 2 occasions after midnight to have them come out and ask him to leave. We have a real problem in the neighborhood. We've waited for over a year for the city, for the police department to do something about this problem. It's not going to get any better. We have 2 new vehicles in the neighborhood. He's just getting even more. Many other neighbors are going to speak upon this, so I'm going to go ahead and just let the time go now. But please listen to our problem. It's not going to get any better. It's only getting worse. The individual is mentally handicapped, which makes it even worse. He's passive aggressive. He loves to have the situation get out of hand because that's how he gets his power. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Alexander, followed by Debbie Gregory.
Jeff Alexander, Thousand Oaks. I've spoken to you many times here. I've never asked for anything for my benefit, but rather for the benefit of the community. But I'm going to ask for something tonight, and that is for all of you to represent me and the rest of my neighbors. I live in the same area, in the Havenwood area, and I'm putting up with and seeing the same set of vehicles that you will see pictures of later on this evening. I also attended a meeting half an hour ago at which your city staff and the police department presented their feelings and what they know, and they asked for patience. I'm here to tell you that I don't have any patience when it goes on a year and we have a problem and it isn't solved, and it is simple. I, as a resident since 1972, have had the benefit of the city coming and telling me that I could not park vehicles similar to those that are now in my neighborhood because they were commercial vehicles. And yet I was told tonight that Mr. Levin's vehicles are not commercial vehicles. 2 step vans, one with pool service on the side, and 2 flatbed trucks, one with a camper and 2 motors on the back of a lift gate, are commercial vehicles. If they're not, somebody wasted a lot of my time and money over the years. And I think that you have the ability to solve the problem. What I'm asking is the 5 of you that represent 150,000 in this community and the few in this resident area that are putting up with this, direct your city staff to solve the problem. Not talk about the problem, not study the problem, but fix it. Get the vehicles, this fleet of vehicles, off the street. If you were a business, it had already been given the boot. If you were a car collector, you would have already been given the boot. This individual is parking unsafe vehicles in an unsafe manner. Now, they run, but when he parks 4 vehicles on a corner to where there is no visibility around that corner, and that corner is populated by kids on bikes, I'm sorry, it's unacceptable, and patience isn't part of the game. Please, fix the problem, direct your staff accordingly to solve the problem, not talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Gregory, followed by Kathy Schutz.
Good evening. I'm Debbie Gregory. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. And I wanted to talk about some concerns that I have, and I believe many other people in the city have the same concerns. A few weeks ago, across America, in 110 cities, we had freedom walks. Freedom's important to the people of this community, yet our freedoms are being violated. Maybe you don't realize it, but I'd like to bring it to your attention. First of all, our freedoms were taken away to choose Ed Massery's replacement by everyone on this council, with the exception of Councilmember Claudia de la Pena. That was wrong. We're a democracy. We should be able to democratically elect our leaders. There were 3 years left of his term. Also, each of you took an oath of office when you got sworn in. That oath of office is to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. I saw that oath being violated at the last meeting. People's First Amendment rights were being violated. Part of the right is to come up if we have a problem with how elected officials conduct themselves, not their religion, not how they look, but how they conduct our city's business. We have a right to speak out. I'd like to leave you, and I've made copies of this. I'll read you a quote from the First Amendment on case law. Shutting down criticism of how public affairs are handled simply because the criticism may reflect on the performance of individuals is likewise not only unjustified, but contrary to express provisions of the Act being the First Amendment. The U.S. Ninth District Court of Appeals upheld this. There's case law, and I've made copies of it for you. I witnessed last week a former council member, one who was always warmly welcomed into these chambers. However, I've seen other council members, like our supervisor, that don't get the same respect. Anyway, he came here, he criticized Mrs. Bill de la Pena, and he read a list of residents' names that he characterized and criticized as well, none of which were here to defend themselves. After he spoke, he was allowed to speak. The mayor apologized to Mrs. Bill de la Pena. None of the residents were apologized. A few minutes later, another resident, Mr. Kidway, came up. He was talking about discrepancies in the reporting of campaign finances on Councilmember Fox's reports. He had an overhead referring to specific ones. He was cut off. Even if you don't like what people want to say, you have to hear it. And tonight I won't be able to stay, but you have your council mission statement and your goals and so forth. Your number one goal has to be ethics. You need to have the ethics. You need to treat the people you serve with respect, not just each other and not just the staff. Thank you.
Kathy Schutz, followed by Nick Kidwai.
Kathy Schutz, Thousand Oaks. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. Bob Wilson did touch on the reason I'm here this evening, but I did want to take this opportunity to invite all of those here in the audience, all of those watching from home, to our candidates night for all those candidates running for a city council seat in Thousand Oaks. The event is sponsored by the Westlake Joint Board of Homeowner Associations, and it will be held, as Bob said, on this Thursday, September 28th, 7:30 at the North Ranch Community Center, and that's 1400 North Westlake Boulevard, the corner of Valley Spring and Westlake Boulevard. Excuse me. All of the candidates will be attending. They will have an opportunity to speak, and you will have a chance to ask questions from the audience. This has always been a very well-attended and very informative event, and we hope to see you there. Again, that's this Thursday, September 28th, 7:30, North Ranch Community Center, corner of Valley Spring and Westlake Boulevard. This is a number, I'll read it out, I don't know if the cameras can pick it up, 805-373-3725, if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nick Kidwai, followed by John Fonte.
I begin in the name of God, who is most beneficial, most merciful. My name is Nick Iqbal Kidwai. I'm resident of Newbury Park. And Dr. Glancy, can you believe it, still Director of Concerned Citizens of Thousand Oaks. I do appreciate the comments of citizens tonight. First of all, I'd like to say that when Ms. De La Pena was mayor, she came to my neighborhood with about 9 staff members. And we have an overcrowding problem, and that problem still exists. One of the issues on the 72-hour rule is that you have to just move the car for 1 mile. And we should look at changing that rule so that you have to move it, I would like it 10 miles. If that's not allowed 5 miles, then this rascal that has 20 cars will have a harder time. We don't have one individual, we have an overcrowding problem from Las Casitas. I'm on the residents roundtable, and we have looked into studying this issue. If the council gave direction, we could move on it faster and come up with some solutions. One of issue is technology. The new cars have electronic meters, so how do you take care of that? We had one car that always had that problem. Dr. Glancy, since you know about concerned citizens, made a $16 investment, $17 investment on a tie. Pretty appropriate after the last speaker. This is basically see no citizen, hear no citizen, respond to no citizen. Unfortunately, I mean, extraordinary service to the citizens is a service and product. I mean, it's unbelievable. As a naturalized citizen, I can say anything about Bush, about Boxer, Gallagher, but I cannot say anything in this chamber regarding a city council member. I have... that has been moved so much that you cannot even see the monitor. TV, if you can zoom down, I appreciate that. The mayor will not object to this. This is a page from Dr. Glancy's statement. I mean, he's appointed, but he's in a political position, and so he had to turn this one-page document in seeking office, so-called. But he cannot present himself before the citizens for 3 years. I mean, as a naturalized citizen, I mean, I find this to be so abhorrent. I mean, I would probably vote for him. I like the man, but this is not the way to do it. If you can zoom in on this, I would really appreciate it. This is, I mean, you are in the wrong direction. I'm on the residents' roundtable. We cannot even exchange emails. And here's 4 council members in broad daylight. I mean, this happens all the time. And the city attorney considers it to be a Brown Act violation for committee members to talk to each other or exchange emails. I mean, you have your priorities mixed up. Thank you for letting me speak.
John Fonte, followed by Bruce Smith.
Good evening. John Fonte, Thousand Oaks. 2 things I'd like to talk about tonight. The first is regarding council's rule limiting free speech. You recently adopted a rule, I think it was last spring, which limits the rights of public speakers by prohibiting comments directed towards specific council members. The California First Amendment Rights Coalition was asked if speakers can be prevented from using their time to criticize named public officials and employees. I'd like to read part of their response, which is posted on their website. I may be repeating a couple of sentences from a prior speaker. Shutting down criticism of how public affairs are handled simply because the criticism may reflect on the performance of individuals, emphasis individuals, is not only unjustified but contrary to express provisions of the law, and that's specifically the Brown Act. Moreover, the First Amendment itself, operating in the limited public forum of a citizen comment period, protects unflattering comments about the performance of responsible public officials, even higher-level staff members, in the context of criticism of how the agency's affairs are being handled. It was embarrassing to watch the last council meeting where its new rule was selectively enforced by the mayor. Get rid of this rule. It's not only illegal but morally reprehensible. The second item I'd like to talk about is the case of the moving seal. No, not the seals that the Harbor Patrol wants to relocate. This has to do with the official seal of the city. First I'd like to put the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code up. And what this says is that it is unlawful to use the city seal without authorization and only for the purpose of official business of the city of Thousand Oaks. Well, on Mayor Gillette's campaign website, we have up here, as you can see, is the seal of the City of Thousand Oaks. Now, that's a little difficult to see from probably on TV, but here it is, front and center. Well, just this afternoon, that same seal seemed to jump across a little bit. Here's his website today, and the seal was removed from behind him and moved over to the other side of the banner. Here's a close-up. Seems like the seal has become a little bit more prominent. So I would like to know from the city manager, hopefully later tonight, if Mr. Gillette's use of the city seal in his campaign was authorized, and if so, why? To me, the municipal code is very clear, and Mr. Gillette's use of it is an intentional disregard for our laws, especially when he was made aware of it during his last campaign 4 years ago. And I hope we don't see the seal on any campaign flyers. Please consider this an official complaint. Thank you.
Bruce Smith, followed by Bruce Wagner.
My name's Bruce Smith, Thousand Oaks. I live in Berkshire with all my neighbors here that are trying to address the problem that we have on the streets. I love my neighborhood. You know, that's why I've lived there. I've been there 10 years. And in the 10 years, the trucks have been moving and the cars have been moving back and forth from street to street and from place to place. At one time they were across the street from my house, which I called the police several times and said, why is this thing here? You know, it's rusted, it's old, it's being towed most of the time, it's got engines on the back, it's stuffed with papers, it's probably got things that live in it. And they said, well, there's, you know, we can't do anything about it. Oh, we'll tag it, we'll mark the, you know, the tire. So a week goes by, and he moves it down the street to somebody else's house. And then he pulls another truck in, and then there's another truck, and then there's another car, and then there's a Ford, and there's a Cadillac, and then there's, you know. So it's just, you know, this could be your neighborhood. You know, would you like to go outside your house and have 4 trucks parked outside your house with your kids riding out of the driveway on bicycles or skateboards? I mean, I don't. And, you know, it's been 10 years that I've lived in the neighborhood, and I've tried to just say, you know what, he's got problems, and he's got a need for holding on to things. Well, it's become more than that. Now it's become where he's actually kind of has a vendetta against people in the neighborhood. People that say, don't park in front of my house. Well, what does he do? He pulls 2 or 3 more cars right in front of their house, right in front of their sidewalk, right to a point of where their driveway stops and his truck begins, making it getting in and out of their driveway almost impossible, if not dangerous. Right at a corner, not legally on a corner where he's parked 20 foot away from a corner, no, on the corner itself with 2 vehicles on either way. I walked by one the other day, and I smelled something. I go, what in the? And so I didn't get close to it. And it turned out to be a possum that had died in his truck because it had just been there. And it just crawled in and died. It could happen to yours. I guess if you left a window down for a week or so, a possum could die in your car. Hopefully not. But please help us. It's important to us. It's our neighborhood.
Bruce Wagner, followed by Ellen Friedman.
Mr. Gillette, Council, thank you for hearing us tonight. I'm one of the Havenwood group who has major concerns with this person, and we're here tonight requesting that you show leadership and address the issue. The municipal code, the way it is written in its present state, does not allow for any correction to this matter. And we need somebody to take the reins and solve this problem for us. There's many people here that have witnessed the intimidation and had their children scared. I personally have a couple of the vehicles in front of my house, which is on the projector right now. And we just would like this solved. This has gone way beyond what is normal for any neighborhood. and please help us.
Ellen Friedman, followed by Anita Monroe.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm also a resident. I live right next to Mr. Wagner. And when I drove my daughter home tonight after work before coming here, there's another car or truck, or it says swimming spa or whatever, in front of our homes. And this man is very intimidating because I've gone up to him and said, we have little kids right across the street. There's 4 little kids there that are under the age of 7. And if they cross the street or anything, other cars can't see them because these huge trucks overflowing with paper and engines are there blocking them. On top of it, I put my house on the market 3 months ago. In the last 3 months, I've had to lower it 3 times because I've had an offer, and they literally came up to me and said the reason they're pulling their offer is because of these junk trucks. And the police are telling us there's nothing they can do, and it's because of the code of the city. So we're begging you to please do something to clean up our neighborhood again. Thank you.
Anita Monroe, followed by Sharon Riley.
Good evening. My name is Anita Monroe. I also live in the Old Meadows community, and I'm dealing with the same problem that the last few people have been describing, and that is one of our neighbors is a vehicle collector. I call them vehicles because I don't know if you can call them cars or trucks. Most of them are filled to capacity with trash. They have rusted engine blocks, several rusted engine blocks, hanging off the back of campers that are tied on with a piece of rope. He moves these vehicles in a shell game every night. His favorite time is between 11 and 2 a.m. So every evening, we enjoy the sound of his revving engines rolling in our neighborhood. And very frequently, he will just park on the street in front of your home and blare loud music, rev his engines, honk horns, especially if you have personally asked him to move up 5 feet or so that it makes it a little easier to get into your own driveway. Any request by a neighbor is usually followed by what we call revenge parking, and he will park right in front of your home, many vehicles. I personally am remodeling my home right now and have had on several occasions had to ask the people remodeling my home to come back another day, which has cost me quite a bit of money because they couldn't get into my driveway because they couldn't swing wide enough around his vehicles to get into my home so that I could do the work that I needed to do. Most recently, I was enjoying the dead possum in the truck. I was out in my yard Sunday, and it just reeked. It was a horrible stench, and I had to have animal control out. And I do have a very nice picture of that. The possum, it looks like, went in to eat. Not sure how I get that up there. It's very hard to read, but it looks like the possum crawled in. It's living in amongst bottles and cans of food and drink, and the stench was just unbelievable. The car already had 2 pink tickets on it when this occurred. The next day, when the 72 hours were up for it to be towed, unfortunately it could not be towed because when it was originally ticketed, the mileage was not written down on the ticket. So once again, the vehicle could not be towed, and it still sits in front of my home today. Here are a few more of the views that I get at my house. I just would like to urge you, please, to help us in this plight. He's very smart. He knows the law. and he knows where our weaknesses are in policing and being able to hand the tickets out promptly, because he always manages to get around it. I know that if this were happening in front of any of your homes, there would be some very creative thinking and legal solutions that would occur, because no one wants to deal with this. I have compassion for the man. I wish him no harm. I just want his trash out of my area. And I also am concerned about the safety of our children. My children are fearful of him. Many neighborhood children are fearful of him. He taunts them. And I have to escort my children in the evening when they pull up if he is out there. So please help us resolve this problem now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker under public comments is Sharon Riley.
Hi, I'm Sharon Riley, and I live on Berkshire, and I've lived there for 30 years, and I'm restating this ongoing problem with Mr. Levin. Do you have a copy of this? I'd like you to see it. Have you seen a copy of this?
Yeah.
Because it's a very interesting chance for the neighbors in Berkshire area and Havenwood to really look at what could possibly be done. The police have been called out so much, and I hate to be having the police spend their time citing Mr. Levin about his vehicles, and I just think that there's some other conclusions that could be, some other actions that could be made here. I don't know if your city community development director, Mr. John Prescott, could do something, or somehow you could make some changes in the ordinances, because the problem is escalating so much that you're going to find that there's going to be some altercations physically between Mr. Levin and residents, and it's not going to go away. What the neighbors are saying about their homes that are up for sale, I have friends that come over and they always like the Old Meadows area, and now, I mean, it is a sore to see all of these vehicles around. And there's some ramifications now with a place where he parks on the corner of Berkshire that are supporting this and letting him park around their area, that they now are taunting the neighbors. So when you get this rise in the emotions among neighbors, you're really asking for a problem. And nothing has been able to be solved by contacting the police or Mr. Santos. I've spoken with him, and he's tried to be very helpful, but saying that this is something that every citizen in Thousand Oaks has a right to park like that. But when it becomes a nuisance, we really do need to make some of these changes. Thank you.
Thank you. We, in addition to the speakers on public comment on this particular item, we have 3 additional written statement cards, all consistent with the comments that have been made from the podium, expressions of concern and encouragement for some sort of relief. Ordinarily, we would go on to the next item, and at the conclusion of the council meeting, we have the city manager respond to things, different items that have occurred during the council meeting. Given the significance of this issue, I'm going to ask the city manager at this time, while you're still here, to comment on this particular item and some of the things that are in process. Mr. Mitnick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and for those I counted at least 7, perhaps more, residents from that area who have spoken out. The city hears what you're saying. We recognize that there are challenges in the neighborhood. There's no doubt about it. And we had a meeting at 5 o'clock, an impromptu meeting based on the large number of emails and phone calls, letters, and so on that came today. And we had, I think, over 10 city employees there, perhaps more, including representatives from the police department, including Police Chief Dennis Carpenter and Police Captain Randy Pennis, and other officers who know the area very well. This is a complicated issue, and we're not going to put up bureaucratic excuses or issues or walls in front of you. The bottom line is we want to work with the neighborhood to help you understand what the issues are, what the history of the neighborhood has been, and what your alternatives and options are. What I heard in listening tonight, multiple complaints from multiple neighbors involving a whole array of issues. And if you look through all the emails and letters that have come in, there have been issues identified such as harassment, threats, commercial vehicles being parked, residential code violations, alleged code violations, I should say, and complaints about the property owner living in a trailer or not necessarily inside of the house. A whole variety of issues and a variety of different potential solutions have been articulated by the residents. So we as a city are hearing different things that you would like us to do. And so what we need to do is to sit down and delineate and document what all the concerns are. And we did some of that earlier before the meeting. We also need to clarify what state and local laws are, what the city can legally do, what the city cannot legally do. And there are other cities that have wrestled with this type of issue, and we'd be glad to further research that and share with the residents what they've done and what the challenges are there. Because at the end of the day, if there are going to be legislative changes for the council, we would need the neighborhood to be in full agreement as to what to do. Do you further restrict parking? Do you prohibit parking overnight? Do you require permits? And if so, how many permits per house? I mean, there are a lot of ideas that people throw out, but actually coming to terms with how to deal with it is a challenge. And this community has wrestled with RV parking for decades. And this council, all of you have dealt with this issue. And it's complicated in coming up with an immediate solution. Again, it's more that we're dealing with alternatives and options. So what we would like to do, council, if you're in agreement, is seek your direction to further work with the residents, to have neighborhood meetings, and then come back to council with potential options and alternatives. Well, that's right, I know, I'm in trouble because we'll bring it back, we'll do that. We're going to go ahead and do that as staff, and then we can come back to council.
Excuse me, I think the city attorney has a comment. Silvano?
No, he corrected himself.
Okay. Oh, all right.
But it is a serious issue, and also Chief Carpenter and Captain Pentis will be glad to meet right afterwards with any of you, or take down your names and numbers, or if you have any other questions you'd like to ask of him. So we can do that.
The rules that govern us prohibit a discussion in greater detail of this item because it's not an agendized item. So I can't tell you that this morning's staff meeting, every Tuesday before the council meeting at 9:30 in the morning, all of the executive staff of the city gets together and goes over the agenda. It's an hour-and-a-half meeting. This morning, 1/3 of that time was committed to discussing this issue. And with the exception of the Director of Library Services and Director of Theaters, everybody has a piece of action going on this thing. The police department, the fire department, code compliance, public works. The goal was to create a sense of awareness. And I know when I went out yesterday and looked at it, I sense, as tragic as it is, and I had a little visit with one of your neighbors this morning up in the city manager's office. So the awareness you were asking for, I'm aware of it, and my sense is that all of my colleagues are. Now we have to convert that awareness to some sort of action. So, Mr. Fox.
Thank you. Just by way of timing for the city manager. Awareness is good. I think what we also heard is a sense of urgency by the residents. And so, Mr. Mitnick, I am disappointed that we've been dealing with this for a year, and I think for most of us, it's the first we're hearing of it. But the second thing is, let's agendize this for the next council meeting. So that would give staff 2 weeks as a placeholder to find out what staff is going to do in terms of recommendations to come back if there are legislative issues, no parking permits, those types of things. But we also need to convey a sense of urgency to the residents that we're gonna deal with this in a reasonable time period. And 2 weeks is I think plenty of time for you and your staff to meet with the residents and then bring back some solutions. So if there ain't objections, I'd like to direct the city manager to place this on the agenda for the next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Mrs. Albano.
Never mind.
It's always difficult when we get into it. We have to live as stringently as we can with a certain set of guidelines and rules in this process. And so as I hear the council, there's a sense of awareness, but I've also got the city's lawyer sitting here who's very concerned that we don't step outside of the boundaries that we have. So I'm trying to balance that. Is there a Mrs. Bildale opinion?
I know we're not supposed to discuss this until the agenda, but it's been discussed already far too much. And the city attorney is...
No, we really can't continue to have comments on it. You've asked for it to come back. If the council, we can look at bringing it back. That's
all right.
That's the
consensus of the council is to agendize this at the next meeting. And that's the action.
All I'd like to caution the council about is that this is a matter, a code enforcement matter that we deal with in certain ways. There's other parts. We've met with them. We're going to continue to meet with them, and it may be that we don't have anything to report other than what we're doing, but if the council's asked for it, that's fine. I'm just saying we really can't continue the discussion tonight about...
I understand, and I got it. So with that, the consensus is that we will have this agendized at our next council meeting, and the date for that is?
October 10th.
October 10th, 6 o'clock. You're straining to say something, Mr.
I'm straining to say something so the residents understand that somebody from the city manager's office will contact you and we'll schedule a meeting with you, and we'll come back on the 10th, not necessarily with solutions, but a minimum, a course of action. Okay?
All right. Okay, thank you. Item 7. I'm sorry. Item 7, city redevelopment consent calendar, redevelopment agency and city consent calendar. Pleasure of the council, and you've got two. You've got two, haven't you? Okay. Mrs. Bildale, opinion?
I'd like to pull items I, J, and G. And if there are no further objections, I can go ahead and move the remainder of the calendar for approval.
Mayor, I believe we have a speaker card.
I, J, and, yes, just 1 second, please. I, J, and G. Okay.
I will remove my motion then.
Okay. Well, we'll hold that in advance. We have one speaker card, Mr. on the consent calendar, item 7, Mr. Nick Kidwai.
Nick Kidwai, resident of Newberry Park. Nick Kidwai, resident of Newberry Park. If it's all right, I would like to dedicate 15 seconds to the possum. I mean, he cannot even defend himself. They are animals, they cannot, I mean, all the negative thing. I mean, at least the contributors can come next week and discuss how they made the contributions to the next meeting. I'm glad that we were talking about issues and rules of procedure, and that's one of the reasons I spend time in these chambers, unfortunately, because there are no rules, and it is so disheartening to live in a city where the rules are not followed to. I will make this work one night. It's not working. It's working? Thank you, TOTV. You can see this.
That, Mr. Kidwhite, that mic is not, are you sure it's on? Try it.
Hello. Yeah.
All right.
I just have from the July 25th the consent calendar, and basically it says that unless a council member, only routine items are supposed to be here, and that's my biggest concern about the consent calendar, that you put things that do not belong in here, violating your own rules and rules of any agency. It also says that unless a council member, redevelopment agency director, or staff member requests separate discussion prior to consent calendar. I mean, I'm willing to be fired as director of concerned citizens that we have taken the step backwards. I mean, if you look at the previous agenda, the rules, any citizen could bring the issue, which I am doing, and pull it. But it has been changed officially. A citizen cannot pull and get any item pulled from the consent calendar. I mean, I don't know how this change went ahead. Coming back to issues, I mean, number A, I mean, I talked about this, that the minutes of every agency are available. I mean, this agency, I mean, after I talked about it, the city manager talked about it, and now we have, for last 1 month, we have a 3-ring binder with the minutes. But it ain't enough. I mean, that's not the American way. I mean, we have planning commissioners over here. I mean, right now the school board is meeting. If you go on the agenda, their minutes from the last September 11th meeting are available. Your minutes are not, draft minutes are not posted. You are making it difficult for citizens to get the minutes. That's the bottom line. I mean, that's what the people said before. I mean, what will it take for this body to become friendly to the citizens? I mean, it will bring me back to the next item. I mean, C, child care subsidy. I mean, this roots and wings thing has not been discussed by the council since '94. It's about time to bring a report rather than put it in the consent calendar. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay. Back to Mrs. Bilde La Pena. You had you wish to make a motion again, replace it or reinstate it?
Yes, I would like to reinstate the motion to remove the consent calendar with the exception of items I, J, and G.
Okay. Any discussion to the motion? There being none, please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Ms. Bilde La Pena, since you pulled those 3 items, you want to start with item G?
Item G, I have a question for the city manager that regards the rent for the National Park Service at the old City Hall up on Hillcrest, and I was just wondering what the market rate would be per square foot. It's within market rate. Or if someone else has the answer.
I will defer to John Adams.
Thank you.
The Assistant Finance Director.
The market rate, based on our current data, would be between $2.25 and $2.75 a square foot.
So up to $2.75 per square foot, and the agreement with the National Park Service is for $1.85 per square foot, which indicates an increase over the previous rate. Do you have that previous rate, or is $1.85 the previous rate?
That's the proposed rate.
Give me a second.
Well, while you're looking that up, point of information, the National Park Service has noticed, I believe, the city, that it will be leaving within 2 years, now that it has acquired the property out in the Santa Monica Mountains area, the old King Gillette Ranch, Psyche University?
It's actually
The
possibly 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
They've asked for a 2-year with 2 6-month extensions.
Okay.
And this is a shorter period of time because it's how the federal government works.
Right.
So we will be coming back with a longer agreement. And Mr. Adams, I think, has an answer.
Correct.
Okay.
The new current annual is $450. The prior was $408, which is $1.70 a square foot, and that was based on the prior lease agreement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no further questions. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, does that take care of?
That takes care of it, and I move that we approve item 7G.
Okay, we'll take them one at a time. Item 7G, I have a motion to approve. I'm sorry, Dr. Glass, did you have a question? Okay, please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item I, Mrs. Bill de la Pena.
In order to continue recording my dissent to items I and J, I do need to pull the items to vote against these two items. It was a 4-1 vote on the affordable housing issue with Centex Homes, as well as the authorization to initiate a municipal code amendment under item I. And so that the record remains clear on that, I do need to vote against items I and J.
That's fine. At this time, I'll move approval of items I and J. Please vote.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Item 8, public hearings, we have none. Item 9, department reports. Item 9A, citywide goals and objectives. City Manager, Mr. Mitnick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, each of you should have a copy of the one-year update report. And for members of the public, we have copies available on the table and the entryway there in the lobby. I'm going to be talking from the PowerPoint presentation, and council members have a copy of that. We can go to the agenda, next one. There are 8 components, and we'll go through it fairly quickly by way of overview and background. In July of 2005, the City Council held a goal-setting session, and from that you developed 10 broad goals for the organization, and you also had a mission statement and a customer service philosophy. And then in February of 2006, the staff provided a 6-month update. This is the goals are for two fiscal years, for 05-06 and 06-07, and 05-06 ended on June 30th, 2006. So tonight we're giving you the 1-year update for how we did in implementing your goals and objectives. Before we get into this, on behalf of the executive team and employees, I'd like to once again thank council for your vision and leadership in putting together these goals and objectives and the mission statement and so on. This is a real positive reflection of how well the council is working together and the clear direction you're providing to staff and how much morale is improved and how well things are going. Also like to thank the executive teams for their taking this process very seriously. They devoted hundreds of hours actually, and if you factor in their employees, significantly more hours to making this document what it is and making it current, and more importantly, implementing council direction. And in particular, I'd like to thank Gay Mosser and Mary Leck in the city manager's office because they've dedicated a big chunk of their life over the last few months doing this. So they made this document, they've helped produce it. Again, this document serves as an accountability tool, both for the council and being accountable to the residents and the taxpayers, and for staff to be accountable to you as the decision-making body to show, so we can show you how well, or perhaps how not well, we're doing in implementing your direction. Okay, and it's also a living document. I just want to point that out, that it's constantly evolving, and our reporting mechanism is getting, we're fine-tuning it. It's getting better and better as time goes on, and we welcome your feedback. Okay, I'd like to go next to the mission statement. Oh no, go to the next one. Or Let's go to the org chart. This is the org chart, and it's interesting when you do this type of exercise to be reminded that the residents are really in charge, or the taxpayers. We have 128,000 residents. We have perhaps over 7,000 businesses in town employing over 70,000 individuals. And we have several 100,000 visitors to the community on a regular basis, and they're users of our services. And below the residents, we have the council, and you serve as our board of directors. I mentioned we have over 7,000 businesses in town. We would be in the top 10, perhaps top 20 of those in terms of number of employees, revenues, et cetera. So the council serves as our board of directors. You set the policy, vision, and provide political leadership to the organization. And the city attorney serves as your legal advisor as well as the legal advisor to the organization. The city manager, myself, I'm the one you hold accountable to implement the direction that you provide. So I make sure we implement council's policies. And off to the right, we have the boards, commissions, and committees, and we have over 24 boards and commissions that help council vet out issues and so on, and come up with policy recommendations. And then below the city manager, we have the 9 operating departments, and this consists of over 650 employees who are really dedicated to implementing council's direction and vision. At the previous goal-setting sessions, I made reference to the city organization being like the Verizon support team. When you see those commercials on TV, when an individual cell phone customer has an issue, there's that whole team of people. Well, that's how we view ourselves as your employees. So we move when you to implement your direction and as needed. Okay, the mission statements that the council adopted a year ago reads, extraordinary service to the citizens we serve is our purpose and product. So every great organization has a purpose. This is our purpose. Next, council adopted the following customer service philosophy, and I'll read it, so bear with me. The City of Thousand Oaks is committed to maintain a desirable living environment while ensuring that change reinforces both environmental quality and economic vitality. Respect the role of citizens, council, and staff in establishing, and implementing policies and programs, provide excellent community services in a fair, efficient, and responsive manner, and promote public confidence and trust. Every great organization also needs to have a philosophy, and this customer service philosophy serves as the underlying principles for the employees of the organization. Okay, going to the next slide. What council did back in February, in addition to the goals and objectives, is council set the top 11 priorities for the calendar year that we're in 2006. And they did this in February. This report includes these priorities and tells you how well staff has done through June, or halfway through the calendar year. And so there are 11 of them, and of the 11, 3 are completed and 8 are in progress. And of those 8, the vast majority will actually be completed by the end of the calendar year. And I'll spend a few minutes going through those top 11 priorities. And I'm also speaking in order as the items appear in the document. Okay, well, in the next slide, the top 11 are in random order. They're not necessarily reflective of what council says, number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. The first one, which is completed, is to develop plans to increase affordable housing, protect mobile home park residents, and schedule affordable housing study sessions. Rather than have 3 sessions, one was held on, what are my notes here, March 28th, and there were a number of things, proposals put in place, and staff is to come back to council as we implement them. And the first one involves a local preference program or proposal, and that will come to council on October 24th. With respect to the mobile home park issue, council did adopt an ordinance on March 21st, and there's a moratorium right now. So staff is working diligently to protect the mobile home park residents. The next one, item 2 there, develop a plan to improve downtown and Thousand Oaks Boulevard. This is in progress. We could have stretched and said we actually completed this, but this has not come to council yet. The Thousand Oaks Boulevard Property Owners Association has been working very diligently on its own, a real grassroots effort to come up with a long-term vision for the boulevard. And they have done a lot of outreach and a lot of revisions to that vision, and that will come to council on October 10th. And there'll likely be some follow-up actions as a result of that. So that one staff is working hard to implement, or working with the business community, I should say. Going to the next page, priority number 3 is to complete the Oaks Mall renovation and expansion review process. That is in progress. There have been dozens of meetings among city representatives from city departments and Macerich, the owner of the Oaks Mall, as well as other impacted agencies and bodies at the county level and so on. And also the council ad hoc committee has met on a number of occasions, and that project, the application's in, the EIR review period has taken place, and that application comes to the Planning Commission on October 23rd, and then if it's appealed one way or the other, we have a slot of November 28th reserved for the City Council if it goes to that. And if the project works its way through and it's successful, the start of construction is anticipated to be in January of 2007, with a potential opening in the fall of 2008, and that does involve a Nordstrom department store. So the review process should be completed by the end of the calendar year. Moving on to the next item 4, this is a completed item, and the priority is to acquire more open space, in particular develop a plan to acquire the Mount Clef Ridge parcels, and that went to council, or council approved the Mount Clef acquisition of the 3 parcels on June 27th of 2006. The actual acquisition was completed in August of 2006, and this was no easy endeavor. Staff worked very hard, in particular the city attorney's office and the community development department worked very hard and long on that one. There were a number of other parcels, smaller in dollar amounts, that were acquired in 2006, and there are others that are being contemplated for 2007. Oh, there's Mark Town, so great job, Mark. Council has established a list of priorities for open space acquisition. Staff lives by that list, and Mark is constantly bugging us to do what we can to complete that list. Going on to item number 5, or priority number 5, to enhance environmental programs, in particular develop a solar energy program, facilitate environmental educational programs for local schools, and develop a program to address groundwater issues such as Kevin Street. This is completed in that the Hill Canyon energy program, solar energy program, was, approved on June 27th of 2006. Educational programs, in fact, staff with Councilmember Irwin met with the Canal Unified School District this week on the 21st, and progress is being made to partner with the school district to help get the word out in the schools about environmental programs. There's a lot of exciting stuff related to that, from Metropolitan Water and so on. There are actually resources available to help with that educational effort. Develop a program to address groundwater issues. We've been before council, and staff has done a very good job in doing drainage improvements, et cetera, out there in the Kevin Street area. Getting to the source of the problem continues to be a challenge, and we continue to work on that in Sacramento. So we've completed the initial part of this. Going on to the 6th priority, select an equestrian center operator and complete the project. This is in progress. I mean, we could have said completed, in that council did provide direction to staff on June 27th to negotiate with Circle K riding stables to have them serve as the operator, and negotiations are taking place. The transition should be completed by the end of the calendar year. This was another project that was a huge effort, very complicated, very difficult, but it is moving forward and on schedule. Construction should begin in 2007, after the beginning of the new year. Moving on to priority number 7. This one is in progress. It deals with public safety, and it reads to continue to support public safety, complete the review of adding an additional police beat, complete the review of the fire district in terms of the cost of providing the service with respect to the service provided, and then also to develop a plan and or special legislation to allow cities to set local speed limits. The police beat study will come to council shortly after January of 2007. Council will remember the police chief has requested and to wait until the end of 2006 to review the actual data in terms of crime rates and services and response times and so on, and then we'll come back to council with a more comprehensive proposal. On the fire district, we are scheduled, let me go to my notes here, to come first meeting in November with authorization to solicit proposals to hire a consultant to do an operational and financial review of the fire district. The last time the city did that, I believe, was in 1993. The report should be done by spring, prior to the beginning of the budget cycle for 07-08. It's ongoing with respect to special legislation to allow cities to set local speed limits. This city did a phenomenal job working with Assemblymember Strickland, actually both Stricklands, to have legislation to allow greater control at the local level. We ran into difficulties with our state senator. It's a complicated issue, and I need to be polite, but it's a complicated issue. We'll continue to work with the league, the Gonzaleses, special lobbyists, and other cities to have some success in that area. We know it's important to the 5 council members. Priority number 8, improve public transportation programs. Commenced the 23 freeway widening project, obtain funding for the 101-23 interchange, as well as to obtain funding for related freeway sound walls. Some of this is completed, but overall it's in progress. The groundbreaking for the 23 freeway widening was on May 12th. The anticipated completion date is in the year 2008 for the 23 widening. The other difficult component of that widening is the 101-23 interchange, and it's a challenge getting funding for that. But Mark Watkins and his staff are working hard on that, and there'll be subsequent reports to council. And related to that is the sound wall issues, and in particular the Windy Drive sound wall. That is in the planning approval process with Caltrans. Even though they'll come up with a revised design and specs, the difficulty there will be funding, getting full funding, and we're hopeful that the Caltrans Commission will act on that shortly after the beginning of the new year. Priority number 9, this is to develop a funding plan and commence construction of the Cal Lutheran University swimming pool complex. This one we labeled as in progress, but it's almost completed, in that we'll come back to council on October 10th with a revised design and construction cost estimate and budget appropriation request. This is for the warm-up pool, the Olympic-sized pool that the university is doing. That's moving forward, and that's being funded by the university. But this represents a tremendous spirit of cooperation between a private university, the Park District, and the city. It's an exciting project, and we know it's a top priority for City Council. The 10th priority is to develop improved transportation and noise mitigation plans, and in particular for the Lynn Road and Blackwood Street areas. This is in progress. For Blackwood, we've had some success with respect to the interior noise mitigation. Council a while ago approved providing funding to deal with the interior noise mitigation, and now the issue is exterior noise mitigation with the sound wall on the outside and so on. And we're still doing a study of the noise levels, and that should be done in December, and then that'll come back to council. There are 5 phases associated with that project. Lynn Road, the council ad hoc committee has been wrestling with that, multiple meetings, and there are some more meetings to go. There'll be a report to the Traffic and Transportation Committee, Mr. Watkins, if I'm reading this right, in October. So that committee will wrestle with that. And then a more comprehensive report to council toward the end of this calendar year, early in 07. The last of the 11 priorities is to develop a plan to eliminate or reduce the general fund subsidy of the theaters. This is in progress. This is another complicated issue. It involves many different variables, and council will recall there have been a number of memos and reports to the council. That staff, Tom Mitzi, myself, Candy Hong, and others have been meeting with the Alliance for the Arts to come up with a comprehensive strategy dealing with a variety of issues ranging from complying with Measure A, which was passed in 1984, how goal setting is done for arts issues, how to work with all the different arts boards and commissions and bodies and interested parties, how to ensure equity, how to deal with the redundancy in oversight and the confusion on who's doing what. The Alliance office rent issue still needs to be resolved. Naming opportunities and signage, that still needs to be resolved. The Alliance's annual contribution to the city, it's been stuck at $250,000. We will come back to you with a recommendation to index that to inflation. There are operational issues, investments, etc. There's a whole litany of issues, and rather than come back one at a time, we have decided to tackle them all at once and come back with a comprehensive plan, and that should be coming to council in early spring of '07. So that's a rundown of the top 11 priorities for 2006. And all these priorities are a big part of the department head's evaluation, so they take it seriously. Shifting gears now to the meat of the report dealing with goals and objectives. I mentioned there are 10 broad goals, and within each goal there are a number of objectives, a total of 267. And these objectives are in the budget book, and they come from a variety of sources. And the way the book is put together, we have a tab for each goal. And all I'm going to do is just summarize each goal and how well we've done. But overall, out of the 467 objectives, and you can see on the screen, staff is proud to report that there are 418 that have either been completed or completed for this year, and they're ongoing in 07, 418, that's 89%. So there are 48 that are in progress, ongoing over multiple years, and we have one that's on hold overall. So pretty good track record. And if you compare it to the report that was provided in February of '06, you'll see significant progress. Goal A, this is to provide open and responsive municipal government leadership. And of the 36 goals, 25 or 69% have been completed or completed for this year and ongoing for '07. The next one, Goal B, is to operate city government in a fiscally and managerial responsible manner. Of the 125, 118 are completed, right on track, or 96%. Going to Goal C, to maintain a strong commitment to public safety. Of the 71 goals, 68 or 96% have been completed or are completed for this year, right on track. Goal D, one that we take very, very seriously, is dealing with the completion of the ring of open space around the city. This will be a goal forever, and 13 of the 16 have either been completed or completed this year and ongoing for next year. Goal E, provide public infrastructure and adhere to the city's general plan. Of the 79 goals, 69 have been completed or completed for this year, right on schedule, 88%. Goal F, continue the city's commitment to cultural programs and services. Of the 56 goals, 52 are completed or on schedule. That's 93%. Goal G, to participate in parks, recreation, education, and leisure programs. Of the 30, 28 are completed or on schedule. That's 93%. Goal H is to maintain a strong employment base. Of the 18, actually 16 are right on schedule. These are recurring goals. They're not necessarily specific to do all this in 2006. Goal I is to implement high-quality redevelopment projects, develop a viable downtown, and produce affordable housing. Of the 29 goals, 21 have been completed or completed for where they should be this year. That's 72%. Some of the more challenging goals are involving this area for obvious reasons. Goal J, I believe this is the last one. This is to implement succession planning for the city's workforce, and of the 7, all 7 have been either completed or on schedule. So 100% there. Shifting to the next section of the report, dealing with the Community Budget Task Force recommendations from a couple of years ago, there were 49 recommendations, and of the 49, 32 are completed, they're done. Another 12 are completed where they should be for this year, and they'll be ongoing. So 44 of the 49 are right where they should be, or 90%. The next section provides an overview of the minimum community standards that were put in place years ago. These are really internal guidelines, and there are 292 of these We don't really have measures to say how well we've done. Again, they're more guidelines. So that leads us to the recommendations that are before you, and there are 4 of them. And the first one is staff's recommending that council receive this 1-year update. The second recommendation is for council to direct staff to prepare the 2-year update, the second year of this, for fiscal years 05-06 and 06-07, and to do so by next September 30th, 07. The reason we pick September is because we need a couple months after the end of the fiscal year on June 30th to wrap up the report. Recommendation 3 is for the council to hold a goal-setting session for the next 2 fiscal years, 07-08 and 08-09, to do that in January of 07. That's time-sensitive because we need your direction for the goals so we can incorporate that in the budget preparation process. And this will involve having the council's consultant, Juan Lopez, come down and conduct individual interviews with the council and senior staff to look at all the goals, as well as the mission statement, customer service philosophy, and council norms. The 4th recommendation involves 3 components, if you will, and that's to consolidate the goals and objectives, the community budget task force recommendations, and the minimum community standards. We need to put them all together in one location because there's a lot of redundancy and repetition. So we want to merge all of that together and to put that into the budget document. Also, the department heads will hold a retreat in the spring after council holds its goal-setting session so we can strategize on how we're going to implement all of this and start looking at or continuing the discussion of long-term internal issues. So again, on behalf of the 650 employees, we thank the council for your vision and being focused. And when you're focused and you're positive and upbeat, so is your organization. And the Verizon analogy that I used at the beginning, it really does apply here. So with that, staff's available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the staff report, Mr. Mitnick. Questions of the city manager? Okay, we have a speaker card on this item on 9A, Mr. Nick Kidwai.
Citizens of Thousand Oaks. Honorable Mayor, City Council. First of all, after reading the goals and all that, I have to congratulate staff for a job well done. Despite all the problems that we talked about earlier, I don't know how you did it, but again, out of the 650, we have probably 640 really hardworking employees in the city, so that really shows. I'm especially surprised and happy as a member of the Community Budget Task Force that so many of the recommendations have been done. I mean, it is really surprising to do it so quickly for a city. I mean, some things are going right here. I don't know how. Maybe Mother God is looking down on the city for a change. That does not mean there are no problems. I was going to use the overhead, but the first slide that the city manager used was showing the Thousand Oaks residents right on top. I hope that will become a reality one of these days where we really look at average citizens. Comment was made before also that if problems happen in the neighborhood of a council member, it would get different priority than for a different citizen. And that's the belief or perception of a lot of citizens that unless you are on the 60-page contributors list or stuff like that, the council doesn't care. And in fact, I mean, as a resident since 1975, the participation of the citizens is just down so low. And that the reason is that people feel that the disconnect between the government and the local government, which is supposed to be so close to us. I am concerned about the green packet that the city manager chose to criticize a press member regarding the report. And nobody talked about that, Mayor, but it's in the green packet. And the green packet should be on the internet too. I mean, I've been told that it will be, so that the complete record of the meetings is there. And to make I mean, these are the problems that the city faces, because for the dozen years that I've been saying is that the city manager and staff and council people have had an adversarial relationship with the press. And it's very sad. I hope that will change. It doesn't look like it. On page 32, recommendation number 32 of the budget task force on page 96 of the big report talks about the child care facilities. Staff has finished that. That was the item on C, on 7C that I discussed on routes and wings. The city council should really get more active on some of these issues. It's $1 million project, and just the staff looking at it is not, you are not doing your fiduciary duty. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, final question, Mrs. Irwin.
Yeah, could you explain a little bit? First of all, you guys did a great job on this. I think it's an excellent document. Can you explain a little bit by what you mean consolidating? It's the recommendation number 4, consolidating the goals and objectives and the recommendations and the minimum community standards.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, be glad to. Several of the objectives and budget task force recommendations and the minimum community standards are repetitious. I mean, what's included in some of the standards are also included in some of the goals, and so staff has found it continuously difficult to keep tracking each one. So we like to, where possible, consolidate them and merge them together. So basically, they're all going to fall under the objectives that will appear in the budget book as well as this. So none of the standards, recommendations, or objectives will go away. It'll just, where there's repetition and redundancy, that'll be just merged together into one goal.
So there's still going to be, you're still going to have standards then for every area?
Absolutely.
Okay, additional questions? Anyone? Dr. Clancy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just want to congratulate the city manager and the staff for putting together a very thorough document. I think it shows a great deal of accountability. So thank you very much for your effort. If it pleases the group, I'll be glad to make a motion.
Okay, this is the receive and file? I'm sorry. Okay. Items 1 through 4?
Yes, sir. Move staff recommendations 1 through 4.
1 through 4. Comments to the motion? There being none, please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, and congratulations, Mr. Mitnick. Well done. Item 9B, California Public Utilities Commission, Public Works Director, Mr. Watkins.
Thank you, Mayor Gillette, members of the City Council. The next item before you is a recommendation by staff that the mayor be authorized to submit a comment letter for the California Water Service Company's proposed application before the California Public Utilities Commission. Just quick background, I know you're all well aware, but there are 3 major water purveyors within the city of Thousand Oaks. The city itself operates a municipal water system, generally speaking, throughout the middle portion of the city. On the western end of the city, we have the California American Water Company. And on the eastern end of the city, we have California Water Service Company. Just a quick map kind of giving a general orientation. Within the city's municipal water, the city council has the jurisdiction and sets the water rates and within the city service areas. The private water purveyors are governed by the state of California through the California Public Utilities Commission. And so the city's ability in that case is to participate in the CPUC's process, review the applications, and make comments. The city has been somewhat successful in the past. In past years, we've gotten the California American Water Company to actually lower their rates, and the city does advocate on behalf of our residents and businesses. California Water Service at this point is proposing a fairly large year-one increase of 22.5%, and then the increases in the outer years are designed to just follow the cost of CPI, Consumer Price Index. The justification for the year one increase is a major capital expenditure of approximately $10 million for the replacement of a water tank. And the city agrees with, or city staff agrees with the justification behind the need to replace that water tank and supports Cal Water in proceeding with that. We do, however, think that they should spread out the increase over several years rather than making it a one-year increase so that the rates don't rise in such sharp contrast. And we also question whether the rate of return that they show on that is higher than it should be. A quick comparison of water rates, one of the advantages within the city having both municipal water and two private water companies is that we can compare not just public versus private, but also private versus private, and it's a way to monitor both ourselves where our rates are and monitor both of the private water companies. Currently, the comparison for the average residential customer using 25 HCF would be that the California American Water is about 16.7% higher than the city municipal water, and California Water Service Company is about 13.3% higher. If California Water Service Company went through with their proposed increase, they would end up being about 42% higher than the city of Thousand Oaks in year one. Now that's using just today's rates. Their increase would go into effect July of 2007. The city could see an increase from the Cayugas District or others, so it's hard to compare apples and apples looking to the future. But clearly the amount that we're talking about we think is out of order. So with that, the staff recommendation that's in the letter that we recommend be sent is that those year one increases be spread out over the entire rate case, that the rate of return be reduced, and that the mayor be authorized to sign the letter making those comments to the California Public Utilities Commission. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions. I'd also like to note that Don Jensen of the California Water Service Company is here and available for any questions if you've got detailed questions from them.
Questions of staff. Ms. Spildale-Opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Watkins. I was wondering whether this letter may lead to perhaps a visit to the California Public Utilities Commission as we did with CalAm in the past?
It very well could. We've let them know on a preliminary basis that we did want to comment. There's times when they will be fairly accommodating and they might actually hold a hearing down in this area depending on the level of interest. But if not, we would submit our letter. California Water Service, we've had a preliminary meeting with them also and with the city manager, and they seemed willing to discuss some of our interests and potentially changing that rate case in kind of the ongoing process. So depending on how successful we are, whether or not the Office of Ratepayer Advocates backs us up and is successful, we may end up having to go testify.
Yeah, I would encourage staff, of course, to do all that can be done in order to prevent this sudden rate increase, which I'm sure will upset quite a few residents in this town. Thank you.
Additional, Mr. Fox.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Mark, just two questions. One is, as I understand and reading the staff report, part of this rate increase is for basically a capital improvement. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Has staff done any kind of analysis on other private companies with respect to how they handled such significant increases with similar issues in terms of capital improvements? Because it seems to me that 22% increase in 1 year is pretty outrageous. Just from a business perspective, that there might be some other models out there.
Yeah, I can't say that we have compared them to the other private utilities and how they're funding. What we did do is ask them for the breakdown of how they justified that 22% increase and how the rate of return was calculated based on that capital investment. Mr. Jensen can comment further, but in general, that capital improvement accounts for about 75% of that year one increase, so it does account for the lion's share of it. The way the company works internally is that they borrow some of the money and some of the money is loaned from the company itself. The money that they're putting into it, they expect a return on investment. They're asking for nearly a 10% return, and that's one of the numbers that we're challenging, saying that that number is really too high. So if they go kind of two ways, if they lower the return on investment, then in essence they're paying themselves, and if they spread it out over a number of years, because like any capital project, you don't make a payment to the contractor on day one. They're still in design, moving into construction. You make construction payments over time. We think they could adjust that over time and lower that return on investment, and that would lower the increase.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Mr. Mitnick, you had a comment on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, to further comment on what Mark was talking about, and our friends from Cal Water also point this out. It's a relatively small service area, so when you have to do significant capital improvements, it's a big hit. And we met with the Cal Water folks, and if I was listening correctly during that meeting, the rules of the game by the PUC almost forced the company to come with a big rate increase now due to these capital projects. The city's water utility would approach it radically differently, and we would spread that cost out over time. And that's what we're arguing that the PUC contemplate, is to do multiple increases, maybe 5-6% a year or so, to recapture it. It also illustrates the fundamental difference between how a private water company works and a public, and how we use debt and how we don't have this 10% equity issue, guaranteed profit, if you will. I just want to point that out. So that's what we hope to achieve in front of the PUC.
Additional questions, comments? I believe it was 3 years ago that we had the issues with Cal American when we were dealing with the acquisition by Thames and the concerns expressed. At that time, the differentials for Cal American was 33%, and for California Water Service was 17%, if I remember correctly. And we expressed concern at that time, recognizing that these are for-profit companies, and they're certainly entitled to a return on their investment. However, there are other variables that come into play on this, and that's available local service. I had the example in Lynn Ranch with a broken water line, and the only resources available were the city resources to go out and address it. So those have to be, at least we have to be aware of them. But when that differential starts climbing up out of the teens and starts getting into the areas of the 40-some percent, I think that we need to do everything we can to keep these percentage figures in front of the community that's served, and let them recognize that we have limited control over this. But from the council's perspective, we're going to do everything we possibly can, and if that means that we have to trek back up to San Francisco and re-engage the individual members of the public utility CPUC, or as they did the last time, come down here and hold hearings here, these kind of percentages so far outdistance a reasonable return on investment that we have to use whatever resources and whatever is available to us, even if we have to seek some assistance from the League of California Cities or any other organization. A 40+% differential in what we as a public agency are able to provide this service for, when we all buy our water from the same wholesaler. It's all coming from the same place. And I recognize the return on investment issue of a private company. But there's also a thing, we're seeing what happens when oil companies are allowed to just do whatever they are inclined to do to wrench resources away from the average resident who's paying the bill. And that's what I see in this particular thing. Water is something, a commodity that we absolutely have. We have no choice. And we have to deal with the companies that are here, because we don't, we have to deal with the companies that are here. But these percentages that are proposed, from my perspective, having a pretty good history with this thing, are absolutely outrageous. So, anyhow, that being said, and Mr. Jensen, I didn't mean to talk as if you weren't here, but I would certainly welcome you. You have a card in for questions only. Should you choose to address the council, you're more than welcome to, but you certainly don't have to. You elect to. Why not?
John Tootle. He is from our rates department.
Don, please introduce yourself. And
I'm sorry, Don Jensen with California Water Service Company, and a resident of Thousand Oaks.
John Tootle, counsel with California Water Service Company.
Heard the comments, and thank you for that. And as you know, I am here as a representative for not only California Water Service Company, but also you folks and the folks of our city and our customers. We do hear what you're saying. We have no objection, after working with staff, Mark and Jay in the Public Works Department, to the suggestion of spreading those costs. I'd like to make that clear. Also, I am here to advocate on behalf of our customers and work with everyone in the city and our customer base to make sure everything operates well. Now, would you like to say anything about the rates?
No, I just want to make everyone aware. It sounds like you are familiar with the process. The Public Utilities Commission has a very open and public forum. They will have a hearing, public participation hearing down in this local area. Do you know what the date is for that?
It's the last week in November, and it will be at the Village Homes Clubhouse. We have nailed that down, and all our residents will be noticed.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but we had a major facility, the reservoir, needs to be repaired. We have been looking at this for over a 12-year period. We've had numerous consultants assist us with this, and we will be going through the review with the public utility staff, which are also engineers, to review to make sure that this is fair. We believe that this is an improvement that's required for the long-term benefit of the customers, the infrastructure, but we recognize that we have to fairly balance that with the current impact on our current ratepayers. So we welcome your input.
The unfortunate part of this at this time is that we're also dealing with the creek avoidance issue of Tapia. And so the very residents that you serve in the city of Thousand Oaks, the eastern portion of Thousand Oaks, is going to be hit with significant expanded costs for wastewater treatment. As Tapia is directed right now, we have 7-month creek avoidance, and there's a big effort to make it 12-month creek avoidance and pump all of that water out across Los Angeles over the Los Angeles River and then out through the Los Angeles River route haul. And so the rate increases that are going to start occurring on the wastewater side and the rate increases on the water side, our residents, the residents inside the city of Thousand Oaks, are going to be hit with a double whammy, and they're going to turn around and they're going to look to this city and say, hey, wait a minute, what's happening to us? And we're going to say, no, you have to deal with the Triumphal Sanitation District, or you have to deal with California Water Service. And I don't think they're going to be of a mind to really accept that. I don't know where it's going to go. It's just that that's the environment that we're moving into. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of what we're going to be dealing with over the next year or so.
We understand, and we appreciate those comments.
All right, fine. Any additional, Ms. Spildale, opinion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you could just repeat for my own edification, the meeting at the Village Homes Clubhouse, is that a public, what sort of meeting is that?
It is a public hearing. Okay. The Public Utility Commission will be there. It is their meeting. We will be represented, but it is their meeting for the residents of our customers.
And do you have a date for that?
It is November, I want to say 27th or 29th.
Fine. Could you confirm that? And then,
yeah, I will.
If you, I'm sorry, Ms. Bill, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought if you could notice the city manager's office, then we'll all have the information. Please go ahead.
Thank you. No, that was the only question that I had, is as to what type of meeting, when, and where. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Any additional? Fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, pleasure of the council, we have a recommendation. Ms. Bill, opinion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there are no public speaker cards, I would like to move that we adopt the recommendation, approve the recommendation to authorize you to sign a letter to the PUC commenting on the outrageous water rate increases by California Water Service Company, and to also send representatives from the city to any public hearing that there may be in order to lobby the commissioners to hopefully side with the residents on this.
And would you also encourage that meetings be held, meetings plural, whatever's necessary, held in this area to make it more convenient for our residents?
Absolutely, yes.
That's part of the motion. Comments to the motion, Mr. Fox?
Thank you. I think you also should include in your letter the public representation here that they would abide by the city's recommendation to spread the cost out over 3 years. I think that's an important concession that staff needs to be congratulated for. Notwithstanding, I think the items that you brought up, Mr. Mayor, I think we do have a representation tonight from representatives of the company that they intend to spread those costs out over the 3-year period. So I think I'd like to encourage the staff and yourself to include that in your letter.
Thank you, and I think staff has heard that. The crafting of the correspondence will take those things into consideration. Any additional comments?
No, I'd be more than happy to include that in the main motion.
Thank you. There being no further comments, please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item 10, redevelopment agency reports. We have none. 11, committee, commission, board reports. Business roundtable, small business support group recommendations. Gary Wartek, economic development manager. Mr. Wartek,
good evening, Mayor and Council. As part of its program of work approved by the Council, the Thousand Oaks Business Roundtable has been working in a number of areas to support local business. This evening, we have a report from the Business Roundtable and the Small Business Subcommittee to present to you. There's no council action required tonight, but the Business Roundtable did want to provide this status report to you and to the community at this time. Two members of the Business Roundtable are here this evening, and they have a couple of comments to add to the report. Dennis Wilson is the chairman of the Business Roundtable. Mr. Wilson is president of DWP Information Architects, which is actually in code means he's a computer guy. And the chairman of the Small Business Support Subcommittee, Dr. Ashish Vaida, is professor of economics and dean of the faculty at California State University, Channel Islands. At the conclusion of their comments, staff is available to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wartek. Unfortunately, I don't have cards, so.
Well, this is Mr. Wilson? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Dennis, if you please give your name and community of residence.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Wilson. I live in Thousand Oaks. First, I would like to acknowledge the volunteer members of the Business Roundtable who put copious hours into this and other projects in support of not only the City Council, but the City of Thousand Oaks. In addition, I would like to acknowledge the superlative support from City staff, without whom this committee could not function. In a few moments, Dr. Ashish Vaida is presenting the Small Business Support Group recommendations from the Business Roundtable. These recommendations are, I believe, both effective and thrifty. They could form the basis of a positive small business support effort that would, if adopted, enhance the overall business environment in the city. This important project is one of several that City Council directed us to study. As part of City Council goals, we were also asked to consider an effort to support sales tax revenue by establishing a buy local campaign. The Roundtable, along with Thousand Oaks Westlake Village Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Oaks, is supporting the distribution by local business people of window signage and flyers in the month of October. The goal is to have 1,000 buy local signs and windows for the holiday season and have 1,000 knowledgeable business owners and managers supporting that. Advertising and press releases will follow through the holiday season. In addition, surveys will be taken in shopping areas in the local areas so that they might understand, or we might understand, things that could be done to develop effective strategies in this area. Another project was to communicate with the Thousand Oaks Business Investment District on their project to enhance the Thousand Oaks Boulevard and its businesses. The Roundtable was to make recommendations on the efforts of the bid and also look into areas in which the city, different areas of the city where similar efforts could be made. The bid has developed a vision statement that you'll be hearing about shortly, and that has the input of our committee. A number of our subcommittees were involved in this effort, including those studying building height limits and parking. The city is fortunate to have business owners and managers who are willing to give of themselves to ensure the future health of our community, and I'm proud to serve with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Wilson? Okay, thank you very much, Ness.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Ashish Vaidya. I have the honor to be the Dean of the Faculty and a city resident of Thousand Oaks. I would like to begin by first and foremost thanking the city staff and Gary Wardick in particular for doing an outstanding job of helping us on the Business Roundtable, and in particular our support group that came up with these set of recommendations for you to consider. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank and acknowledge the fine work of my fellow subcommittee members, including Dennis Wilson, Stacy Peterson, Connie Clay, and Barbara Kloster, all of whom, as Dennis pointed out, spent long hours on this project. This was part of the work, as Mr. Wardick mentioned, which we were tasked with in terms of the Business Roundtable agenda, to find ways to support our small business in the community and provide them with support in a very competitive environment. We began this project last year in 2005 with a needs assessment and a survey that was handed out to over 1,000 local businesses. We received some excellent feedback from many of those businesses that gave us a sense of what kinds of assessment needs are required for the small business. What you have in front of you is the report that I would encourage you to look at, and if you have any questions, of course, we'd be happy to answer them. These recommendations are within three components. The first category has to do with utilizing the resources within the different agencies available within Ventura County, including, I might add, my own university, California State University, Channel Islands. We have made recommendations to use the county's Job and Career Center in Simi Valley, the Thousand Oaks Westlake Village Chamber of Commerce, and of course the two regional universities, Cal Lutheran as well as CSUCI and EDCVC. The second set of recommendations have to do with supporting and promoting small business, things that the city staff are already doing. And finally, the third set of recommendations have to do with two areas that will probably come back to City Council with some more recommendations later on in this year. So at this time, I'd like to maybe stop here and see if you have any additional questions for any of us, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? It's testimony to the clarity, completeness and clarity of your work. Much appreciated. Mr. Wartek, anything to wrap up?
No, I'd just like to thank the 17 outstanding members of the Business Roundtable who contributed to this and to our past work and the future work, and particularly Mr. Wilson and Dr. Vida.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your service to the city. It's much appreciated and very, very important. Pleasure of the council. We have a recommendation to receive. Receive and file. Any comments to the motion? I'll make it. Please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you all very much. Item 12A, follow-up reports. We have none. Item 12B, bicycle safety improvements. Councilmember Glancy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, Dr. Glancy.
Sure.
I would reference, we had, I think, two separate green packets this evening, and in one of the green packets, page 1, I hope you're all aware, where we have the email from Mr. Sawa. Okay? You didn't? Did you get this one, Claudia? Okay, I've read it, so take mine. Oh, Linda's coming with another one. Why don't you take just a minute if you want to and look that over. You did? Okay. All right. We're ready then. All right. Thank you, Dr. Clancy.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, on September 16th, a tragic accident occurred when Glenn Garvin was struck while riding his bicycle in the bicycle lane. while his passing is mourned and felt by many, many people, perhaps an increased focus on bicycle safety can evolve from this horrific event. I believe that collaborative effort between city staff, our law enforcement people, bicycle enthusiasts, and other interested parties will be a proper beginning. I think that overriding everything, though, is a need to create a safe bicycle environment. I do not think that this is ever going to be possible as long as we have 50-mile-an-hour speed limits through essentially residential areas with a mix of bicyclists, joggers, and pedestrians, and automobiles probably traveling between 55 and 60. I just don't see it as working. We have tried to get control of our speed limits, but as has been said earlier and at other times, that's not within our possibility right now, but it is definitely something that's required. I think that all the information that we gather from other communities on how they deal with bicycle safety, along with the comments of enthusiasts and other interested parties, should be referred to the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission for review. I appreciate my colleagues' support with us.
Thank you, Councilmember Glancy. Comments to Mr. Fox?
I think Mr. Glancy is right on the money here. We've had a number of close calls, both on Westlake Boulevard and Lynn Road, not to mention other areas of the city. And notwithstanding our efforts with respect to taking control of the local speed limits, which are difficult, I think the city manager did a good job articulating our challenges there. We need to work with Public Works. I think the reflectors they sound like a good idea just at first blush, and I think we need to have staff bring something back that would provide for whatever mechanisms that we can put in that will provide for a greater margin of safety. And I think Mr. Glancy is right on the money here, and we need to move forward on this.
Thank you. Additional comments on the other end? A couple of recent trips to Europe, and I noticed bicycle lanes that were separated from the traffic lanes with the traditional parking stops. And I asked a guide on one of those tours, I said, well, how does that work for you? And she said, well, it's great, except that the bicyclist then is at a real disadvantage if they weave at all within that lane or something occurs and they have to dodge because there's no place for them to go. So something like the bot stots, this is a tragic thing that has occurred to us, and I know for Councilmember Glancy, because you had a personal relationship with Mr. Garman, and also he served at your recommendation on the Traffic and Transportation Committee. So I think the recommendations are meaningful, and I think it's an excellent starting place. That's your recommendation 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, it is.
That's the motion. Comments to the motion? There being none, please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Sully, thank you very much to you. Okay. Item 12C. This one's mine. City of Thousand Oaks to co-sponsor National League of Cities Public Safety and Crime Prevention Policy Committee joint resolution with the cities of New York and Boston. And it may appear that we're dealing in a little different league here, but what's occurred, the mayor of New York and the mayor of Boston on this particular item, because we are hosting the National League of Cities Public Safety Crime Prevention Steering Committee beginning Thursday evening, has sent this to us and asked for our concurrence, and it has gone out to other cities across the United States, and it will be an item of discussion. Excuse me. In our hosting responsibility, we have an opportunity to. Our committee, this Public Safety Committee, reviews, amends, and adopts resolutions for approval by the National League of Cities Board of Directors, and the subsequent adoption by its member cities to form a national municipal policy. The national municipal policy serves as a framework for the organization to advance and establish federal legislation and programs that benefit states and municipalities. New York City Mayor Bloomberg and Boston Mayor Menino are proposing a public safety resolution for the committee's consideration as it relates to accessibility to use Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, trace data in solving crime, federal legislation that supports local efforts to prevent and solve crime, and promotes cities across the nation to work together against crime in numerous areas, including information exchanges. Since the resolution is being introduced at the policy committee, at the steering committee in Thousand Oaks, Mayors Bloomberg and Vino are requesting that the city to serve as a co-sponsor of the resolution. It's a matter of timing for us. In my opinion, it's certainly a worthwhile initiative for us to support, but I can't support it unless we have support from this council. Any comments to the motion, or any comments? The motion is then to adopt the resolution as proposed by the cities and give me authorization to present this to the National League of Cities Public Safety and Crime Prevention Steering Committee at its study session this Friday here in Thousand Oaks. Please. Yes, Doug.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question. Why is the release of statistical data, why has that been withheld?
Well, I think if you understand, since 9/11, everything involving the intelligence, information, law enforcement, intelligence gathering and sharing, virtually every aspect of this has come under some form of scrutiny, given the multiple agencies that are involved in this business. This one is dealing with municipalities, with our cities, and focuses on our cities' ability to constantly enhance their working relationships and their ability to receive and dispense and share information. It's part of an ongoing effort, but this one is focused solely on municipalities in this country. This one doesn't deal with a lot of the international issues that normally you see, but it requires a joint policy nationwide to have application in all the states and all of our municipalities. Okay, the motion is in place. Comments to the motion? None. Please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Item 13, City Manager. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, by way of follow-up, again with the Havenwood residents, as indicated before, staff will work with the neighbors right away and come back to council on October 10th with, at a minimum, a course of action to be pursued to deal with the multiple issues in that neighborhood. There was a question, one of the speakers, about the use of city seal during the election. The city attorney will follow up as necessary on that. And again, to reiterate the Cal Water issue, the upcoming hearing with the PUC for rate increases will either be on November 27th or 29th, I heard. We will make sure we get those exact dates and put it on the city's website, so there's a link there. And we'll also follow up with residents who've complained with the city about their rates or water issues, so they're aware of it. We have a database, a call log, and we will make sure we follow up with that. By way of announcements, upcoming issues, a few things to pass on. The mayor is part of the National League of Cities Public Safety and Crime Prevention Steering Committee, and they'll be holding a three days of meetings coming up the latter part of this week on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the Westlake Hyatt, so it's exciting for the city to be hosting that. And there'll be a couple events on Thursday night at the Gardens of the World. On the 28th, there'll be a fiesta welcome reception, and all the council members are welcome to attend that, and also a reception at the Reagan Library on Friday night on the 29th, and council members are encouraged to participate in that. Mentioned by a couple of the speakers, the American Cancer Society will be holding the Relay for Life event at Newbury Park High School this weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Havenwood?
I mentioned Havenwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we'll also put information on the city's website starting tomorrow for the Havenwood matter. Upcoming council meetings, the next meeting will be on October 10th. We'll have one public hearing dealing with a rezoning of property located at 1750 and 1752 Los Feliz Drive. It's already gone through the process. Now it's coming to council. There'll be some department reports worth noting. The long-range vision for Thousand Oaks Boulevard, that will be presented by the Thousand Oaks businesses, as I mentioned earlier, in the goals and objectives. There will also be a report on the CLU pool and the Sycamore School Gym project. The City Council contributed $1 million to this community benefit project, and the council needs to release the remaining $250,000 of that appropriation for that project, and there will be an update on that on October 10th. October 24th, some department reports worth noting is the staff is coming back with a local affordable housing preference program as part of the affordable housing follow-up that was discussed during the goal-setting session. Also, contract approval for the golf course operator selection, and the county will provide an update on the pandemic flu situation. On October 23rd, the day before that, the Planning Commission will be holding a hearing dealing with the Oaks Mall renovation project. And that's it by way of city manager update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitnick. We have item 14, no closed session this evening. At this time, we will adjourn this meeting. On behalf of the entire City Council, I will adjourn tonight's meeting in memory of former Traffic Commissioner Dr. Glenn Garvin. Dr. Garvin was appointed to the Traffic Commission in April 2006 at the recommendation of Councilmember Glancy. Dr. Garvin, a resident since 1989, was a local dentist and was past president of the Canal Valley Academy of Dentistry. Dr. Garvin was also an avid cyclist and a member of the Old Cranks Bicycle Club. He is survived by his wife Pam and two sons, Andrew and Reed. Andrew is currently serving on the city's youth commission. City flags were flown at half-mast last week in Dr. Garvin's honor. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the family at this time. We now adjourn to 6 p.m., October 10th, 2006. Thank you very much.